Boy, Jamie, just like I said, what a way to spend the Sunday night. Here, Chargers lose another heartbreaker, this time in primetime again. And again, it's to the Kansas City Chiefs. It's always a tight game. Chargers just don't seem to be on the right end of it very often.
Sunday night, Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Monday night, Thursday night. Fuck. Does it really matter?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating because
we're only here to suffer, as the Korean American says. That's his username. I didn't tag that.
They actually played a really good first half, and the coaches, with the exception of not getting a touchdown at the end of the first half, I thought the coaches basically managed a perfect final 8 minutes of the first half. They had the ball twice. The Chiefs only had a 3-and-out in that span. They did a great job of moving the ball, putting points on the board, taking the lead into halftime, setting themselves up for basically a 3-for-1 between their two final possessions in the first half and their first possession in the second half. Seemed like they'd come out guns blazing. They come out early, play action on first down, getting big chunks on first down out of play action, something we've been calling for all season for a year and a half, it seems like. They're finally doing it. They're having success with it. They're putting points on the board with it. And then we get in the second half with a measly 7-point lead. And it's like, okay, game's over. Let's sit on the lead. We're going to run the ball on first down. We're going to run the ball on second down. We're going to ask Josh Palmer to be our yards after catch guy and throw the ball to him 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Let's bleed the next 30 minutes and win the game. There was no interest in scoring points until they had to. It didn't seem like they were really even trying to move the ball. They went right back to their old philosophy of trying to set up third and medium, third and short, instead of moving the ball in chunks and putting points on the board. Again, the defense played really well for about 3 quarters, and they just fell apart because they were on the field too much. Can't really blame them. Well, some of it you can blame them, but not all of it. They can't cover Travis Kelce. They can't tackle Travis Kelce. They're at a point now where, last year we're looking at Nasir Adderley thinking, wow, this guy might be a star in the making. It seems like he's taking steps forward. He's due a big contract. Guy can't fucking tackle again. No, he's not covering anybody, and he's not making plays on the back end. They're just a mess. Blown assignments up front, blown assignments in the secondary on defense. They're not a good football team, and they're poorly coached. I think that's really the only conclusion you can come to, is they're just not well coached. They're not fully prepared on a game-to-game basis. They can't make in-game adjustments. They're just bad.
Yeah. The not scoring at the end of the half was a big momentum turn. You could just feel it. Going from 1 score to 1 score and not extending it to 2 scores after that, the way they were playing in that first half, it all started, it kind of all started and ended with that 2nd and inches toss play from Lombardi to Eckler. They were running downhill all of the first half. They were getting ahead of the sticks. They were coming downhill. They were power blocking. There was a lot of good things happening in the run game. And then to go behind the line of scrimmage, toss it, and hope you can get Eckler in space against this defensive line, that didn't make any sense to me. They went away from what was working early on, and then they decided they wanted to run that pitch near the goal line on 2nd and inches. I mean, that QB sneak was working all game long. That just seemed like an easy call. And if it wasn't, then, running it with Eckler downhill is much easier and much better than a toss outside to Eckler, and set him up to 3rd and 2 or 3 at that point, and then they couldn't convert, and then they had to kick a field goal. That was a tough one. But I think I don't know. I was on Twitter at the end of the game for it felt like 60 seconds, and it was Lombardi still sucks. The injuries are a big issue, and I don't think either of those things are really true. Not building on that lead in the third quarter. I think there's a little lull in that third quarter where Lombardi could have been a little bit better, but I think the first half he was great. Towards the end of that game, he was very good. But what it really came down to for me in this game is the offensive line just could not protect Justin Herbert. When he had time, Herbert was cooking, and that's why he was so good in the first half. But then the amount of sacks and pressures they gave up at the end of that game, I mean, it just felt like the offensive line was just running on fumes in that fourth quarter, and Casey was in that backfield a lot. So, I don't know if you can go ahead and start blaming Lombardi. I mean, obviously we're not fans of Lombardi. We've been saying it for weeks and weeks, but this isn't really, to me, the game you blame Lombardi or start blaming the injuries, because they had the guys. Not having Mike Williams hurts a little bit, only having him for that one play, which was a beautiful catch, by the way, that little toe tap on the sideline. Not having Mike Williams is one thing, but KC didn't have a lot of their wide receivers either. They didn't have Juju. Tony ended up going down early in that game. I mean, they had McCole Hardman didn't play today. They had their top wide receivers out. Their top three went out. They still had Travis Kelce, and that was enough for them. And it should have been enough for the Chargers too. But they just didn't do enough today, and they got beat, really.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with you on Lombardi not being good. I mean, the offensive line definitely did struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They struggled big time in pass protection. It seemed like the communication in general was bad. The protections weren't being slid to the right places. They weren't picking up stunts and twists and blitz. It was really bad. And I think a game like this from the offensive line was coming because Justin's been doing so much to slide and climb and avoid pressures that it's made the offensive line look much better than it really has been. They'd only given up 4 sacks or 13 sacks, I think, to this game, prior to this game. And they give up 5 tonight. And I think it was just a matter of, I think Herbert kind of ran out of some of his magic in terms of making people miss and buying time. And he started taking too many hits. But I also think, Lombardi was really good in the first half, in particular on the first drive. He was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Dialed up a shot to Palmer. He had a first on the first play of the game, play action, 15-yard dart to Keenan for a first down, kind of got them rolling. Every first down on that first drive pretty much was a play action pass. And then they'd run behind that. And they were having a lot of success doing that. And I can understand why they wanted to stick to the run because they had so much success with it in the first half. But you can't run on every first down and expect to have success. It just got to the point where the Chiefs were loading the box, 7, 8, 9 guys in the box, and the Chargers just couldn't get the same traction in the ground game. And now they're behind the sticks, and now we're going back to stick. Now we're going back to dump offs, and they can't pick up yardage in chunks. So I think Lombardi betrayed himself and the team a little bit with some of those first down calls in the second half. Kind of felt like they wanted to sit on the lead a little bit when they had a chance to really go for a 3-for-1 on those final 2 possessions of the first drive of the first half, and the first possession of the second half. You put up 7 in that first possession of the second half, take a couple of shots, move the ball down the field, and that's a whole different ballgame. So it's like we have a lead. Let's go back to what we always do. It doesn't work, but maybe it'll work this time. And it's just frustrating. Kind of tired of watching it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think there was a lull in the third quarter. They didn't score any points. I don't think Lombardi was perfect, but I think there was a lot more people to blame on that rung before hitting Lombardi, in my mind. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make the argument either way, but I think if you're getting into a habit of we're going to run on every single first down when they're loading the box and there's no thought of taking a play action and trying to pick up 10 or 15 yards behind the loaded box, I just think you're doing yourself a disservice. Just felt like they weren't really trying a whole lot in the third quarter. Give the Chiefs credit. They stopped them. They made plays. They got to Herbert. They did their job. They're professionals on their side. They're getting paid too. It's not like you're just going to go through them, like a knife through warm butter every time. But it seemed like they really had them on their heels, and they didn't really do anything to capitalize on it in the third quarter.
No. And I think even with all that said, the Chargers obviously had a chance to win this game, and they blew it late. And I mean, quite honestly, I don't know if you can draw it up any better. You want your best player on Travis Kelce, and they put Derwin on him, and he just got beat on that last touchdown. He got rubbed, went flat, and then Kelce just went right by him. I mean, this third down defense was terrible today. There was a lot of third and longs converted today. The second touchdown was on a third down throw from Kelce with a bunch of missed tackles, including the Nasir Adderley tackle you were talking about earlier. Derwin was good early on, but man, they really needed him at the end there. And there was that really bad flag on him. And then he just got beat by Kelce again.
Yeah. Derwin has not been great in coverage this year. Most of his value comes when he's in the box and he's able to blitz and make plays against the run. The defense as a whole, I think, is very limited in terms of what they can do when he's forced to cover the majority of the time. So you come into a game like this where you have to have him on Kelce more often than not. It really limits your blitz packages. It limits your pressure packages in general. It just makes things hard because it takes the best player further away from the ball. And that puts everybody in a worse spot. So, Kelce had a great game. They got to figure out a way to take that guy away. Going into this game, he is the one guy they're going to get the ball to when they need to make a play.
Yeah.
Mahomes is always looking, even when they're fully healthy, Mahomes is looking at Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm.
They're going there. They're designing plays for him. You have to find a way to make him earn it. You have to find a way to take him away. And not only did they not take him away, but it's like they're afraid of tackling him. Like he catches the ball, and it just seemed like it's an automatic 15 to 20 yards of yak every time he touches the ball because nobody has any interest in tackling the guy. They just shrink. They're shrinking violets every time he touches the ball. It's pretty disheartening for a team that spent so much time talking about how much they've improved the defense and how tough they are. And, they've got all this veteran leadership, guys who have won before. And this is what we get when the game is on the line.
Yeah.
Just not a whole lot of fight, not a whole lot of leadership, a whole lot of talk, but nobody's really backing it up right now.
No action. No. And this is really, this was as close as it came to a playoff game in November. With this loss now, they're pretty much out of the AFC West hunt now, and they got to fight for a wild card spot. So they really, really needed this game, and they knew the importance going into it. And, if that Juju's out and Hardman's out, and they're going to be going to Travis Kelce, I don't know in any world where at any point during the game, Kenneth Murray should be matched up on Travis Kelce on any important down, whether it's first, second, third, fourth. He should not be on Travis Kelce ever. And of course, he was at one point, and it was one of his biggest games of the day.
Yeah, it's not all on Murray. Everybody struggled with
Kelce. Of course not. No.
But
Derwin struggled with Kelce.
That can't be the game plan. And if you go into the game knowing that Kelce is going to be the focus, which he always is, but especially when everybody else is hurt, bracket him, press him, make him earn his way down the field, something. You can't just give him free runs across the field and not tackle him. You got to have more bodies around him. It was way too easy for him all day long. And Mahomes was amazing again tonight. You got to give him credit. Some of the throws he made were ridiculous. That one, I think it was to Watson down the sideline with
Bryce Callahan.
Running step for step with him, and he just drops it right over Callahan's head off his back foot.
Oh my God.
Some of the things that guy can do are just amazing. And he was money when it counted again.
Yep.
He always is. You just knew, you want to celebrate the go-ahead touchdown in the final 2 minutes of the game, but a minute 50 and 2 timeouts, too much time.
Way too much. Yeah.
They're not capable of stopping him in that situation.
No,
they're just not. And, I think it was the first play, that final drive. I thought they should have hit Mahomes with grounding because he was in the pocket retreating and he threw the ball away and he wasn't within 10 or 15 yards of a wide receiver. And there was a guy about 10 yards downfield and they said, oh, he's in the area.
Yeah.
He was nowhere near the ball. He was clearly throwing that ball away. That should have been grounding. I think it was the next play or 2 plays later, the throw to MVS where he throws, I think it was down to the ground and comes back to the ball. Like, you can't tell me that's not offensive pass interference. And then you go with those 2 non-calls, and then you call defensive holding on Derwin, who is pressing Kelce, and they're within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and they've been letting that go all night long, it's just ticky-tack, man.
Yeah.
At least let them play. I mean, I'm not saying the refs are the reason they lost the game, because they're clearly not.
Yeah.
The Chargers did plenty to hurt themselves, both in terms of coaching and a lack of execution on both sides of the ball. But it makes it harder to swallow when the referees are inserting themselves in the game in the final 2 minutes like that.
Yeah, extending that drive a little bit longer than they should have. Yeah, and on the other side of the field too with Derwin. I mean, not even like going his way. His hand got hooked inside of his jersey, but it really wasn't like egregious or something you call more times than not. I think you let that go usually.
Yeah,
but
it's away from the ball. It had no impact on the play. Mahomes isn't even looking at him. I agree. I think you've been letting him play like that all night.
Mm-hmm.
There was a similar play like that with Kelce and Derwin earlier in the game where Derwin got Kelce and Kelce tried to swim free and he fell on a third down and they didn't call it.
Yep.
If you're not going to call that, you shouldn't call the one at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Still not blaming the refs, but
not blaming the refs.
Mm-hmm.
We're not blaming the refs. That's our number one rule on the show.
Yeah.
We don't blame the refs, but that doesn't mean we can't criticize them.
Yeah.
Like I said, Chargers did plenty to hurt themselves. Not moving the ball at all in the third quarter was crippling. Not getting 7 at the end of the first half turned out to be crippling.
Yep.
For me, the turning point of that game, and people will point to not getting 7 at the end of the first half, and that did hurt.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the whole game changed on that 3rd and 17 inside the Chiefs' 5-yard line. When they give up a first down, like a 25-yard catch or whatever it was for a first down. I mean, they rush 4, they drop 7. It's just a vanilla 4-man rush. There isn't even a stun or a twist up front. There's no extra man coming. 4-on-5 up front. All you're really doing is looking to pin him down, to pin Mahomes down in the pocket. There's no effort to get to the quarterback there. And you just let him sit back there and pat the ball and climb in the pocket and make another money throw on a money down. And you just look stupid. You've been blitzing him all night. The blitzes have been working.
Yeah.
You've been rattling him. You've been forcing some bad throws in key situations. And there you go conservative. You basically play prevent. And like they say, all prevent does is prevent the win. And that's what happened. You give up the first down. They wind up going down and scoring on that drive, I believe. And it completely changed the game.
That was a tough one. That was a really rough sequence. And but like you were saying, I mean, there was a lot of really good pressure from a lot of guys. Sebastian Joseph Day had a great game today. Bryce Callahan on that corner blitz hit Mahomes twice, forced 2 incompletions. Morgan Fox was in on it. And Troy Reeder, by the way, when he stepped in for Kenneth Murray, forced a fumble, had an amazing pass breakup in coverage. We saw some good plays from Fajoko, some good plays from Gaziano. I mean, there were some good plays today, but man, run defense did not help him today. And that third down defense, which is something that Staley said coming out of the break in halftime, said we have to be good on third down and we got to get turnovers. Our third down defense has got to be better. And it was worse, I feel like, in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, the third down defense was actually pretty good in the first half. They only gave up 13 points in the first half. Mm-hmm. And it was all in the first 3 drives of the game. After that, they pretty much shut them down. So, third down defense is awful. It continues to be awful. So let me ask you, at this point, we're a little over a year and a half in with Brandon Staley.
Uh-huh.
What is he good at?
Leading men.
That's a horseshit answer. What's he good at?
Well, I'm saying that's why he got hired, because he's much like the other 2 coaches before him. He is good at leading a locker room.
Because he's a fucking cheerleader?
Well, that's what he's good at. I mean, his defense has not been good. That they invested so much in his defense. They are one of the worst run defenses. They don't get as many turnovers as they should. The defensive line hasn't improved as much as they had hoped. It seems like the corners have taken a step back when they're supposed to help ascend this team. The offense isn't any good. Part of that's Lombardi, but I mean, it's not like his in-game decisions and his gunslinger mentality that we liked early on has really paid off. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying there's not much to really like about him. It's about great sound bites. It's about being able to keep his team together, but it just none of what he says he's backed up on the field because they're just not a good football team right now.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, then what's your answer? Because you sound like you got one better.
No, well, he's not good at anything.
Okay.
I mean, that's the problem. Is he was good with the sound bites early on, and I think that's what drew a lot of us to him, was that it seemed like he was being honest and transparent on the mic early on. But now, the one thing that really separated him from other coaches, especially the Chargers' last two coaches, was the fourth and Staley, right? We're not even getting that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had a couple opportunities in this game to go for it and chose not to, which is problematic. Settling for a field goal inside the 5-yard line is never a good thing.
Wake up.
His defense is bad.
Mm-hmm.
All around bad. It's especially bad on third down. It's really bad in the red zone. They spent a bunch of money on the defense with players that he wanted, who we thought he would put in a better position to succeed. They're all getting worse. I think it's time to ask if his system is too complicated. Is it too intricate? Is it so complicated that the guys don't get it and they can't carry out their assignments? Because there are way too many blown assignments on defense on a week-to-week basis. Guys losing the edge, guys busting coverages, guys missing tackles, just guys generally being out of position and seemingly not knowing what's expected of them. We're a year and a half in, and the excuse last year was, well, we just didn't have the talent to carry out the scheme. But they're supposed to have the talent to carry out the scheme, even with the injuries. Mm-hmm. The secondary is completely healthy. The linebackers are healthy. They're down at edge, which was supposed to be a strength of the team. And they're down on the defensive line. Mm-hmm. But nobody has really stepped up to take charge of this defense. And that's a big problem. We've also had, what we mentioned, the loss of Fourth and Staley. We don't get that anymore. I have a feeling that's more in the front office than it is on Staley. I think they clipped his nuts in the offseason after hearing everybody rip him for going for it on too many fourth downs, and they overcorrected. They don't manage the clock well typically. Their scripts generally do not net good results. Usually their best results come after they're through their scripted plays. There's just nothing. I don't know what he does well. And it's worrisome because he should be getting better. He should be learning from his mistakes. And I think we're still going to have him for 2 more years until his contract is up based on the way the Spanoses do business. So I don't know where this gets better unless they just keep dumping money into the defense. The offensive line is going backwards. They've got problems at wide receiver. I mean, there's all kinds of issues going on right now that they don't seem to have any answers for. And that's problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if maybe this is, that Staley's just a little bit overwhelmed. I mean, when he came in, we both wanted Staley, so obviously we were a fan of the hire. We were, he was 1B or 1A, 1B. We liked Dable too, but with Staley, he had shot up the ranks so fast and then became the defensive coordinator for the Rams that we were even thinking that, the Spanos were finally like getting ahead of the curve. They weren't waiting until he became a hot commodity. They were like, he's got a good system in a successful defense. He's a forward thinker, and let's get him while he's young and hot before he becomes, the hottest name on the market. And now, I don't know if it's because he hasn't had all that experience and it just isn't working out, or he doesn't know how to implement his defense, but whatever he did in LA is not working here or with the Rams, isn't working with the Chargers now. And maybe it is the complexity of the defense. Maybe it is that he's he hasn't been in the league long enough to understand it. I don't know, but whatever it is there's a huge disconnect between the coach we saw with the Rams, who was so creative and again a very forward thinker, and was very stats driven, and he was a gambler on fourth down, to now this guy who's kind of got this soft defense that you can't really count on. The defense is supposed to help them win games, and it kind of helped them last year. This year, it's just not the case. And there's just problems all around when they still have the talent on the field, regardless of all these injuries that have piled up.
Yeah. I mean, we talked last week about the common denominator, and that's the front office, Tom Telesco and more specifically the Spanos family and John Spanos as the head of football operations. That's the one common denominator between all these coaches they've had in the last 10 years. But Staley's got to take some of the blame. And I mean, he seemed like he was a guy who was brilliant, and he was going to take the defense to the next level. And there was a lot of talk about how he was going to develop Herbert, and they were going to make Herbert the offense, which hasn't really happened. So right now it all seems like talk, and it seems like too much too soon, and there's no answers for anything. A lot of talk about answers, but not a lot of answers actually being provided. We focused a lot in the bye week on getting off the field on third down. Okay. You just gave up like 60 or 70% third. I don't know what the number is, but it seemed like they let them convert on almost every third down throughout the game.
And isn't it funny? Like it could be 3rd and 12 or whatever it was, and you're like, they're going to give this up. But then that like 2nd and 3rd and short, you're like, oh, they might be able to stand strong and stop a run here or there. But if it's 3rd and 10 plus, it's like they're probably going to convert this because it's the same old Chargers.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I really had high hopes for Staley, but we're not getting any answers for much of anything. We're not getting really any adjustments. It seems like they're stuck on doing the same thing over and over and over again. The only real adjustment we get is that heavy front with only one linebacker. Mm-hmm. That's the big adjustment pretty much every week. But now that's part of the game plan at this point. It's not an adjustment. They just go to it when they're desperate.
That's the point. They only go to it when they've actually absolutely been gashed by it for 3.5 quarters, or 7-8 plays on the drive, 7-8 big runs, and then they go heavy up front. It's not like they do it to get ahead of it.
And it's the same thing with the blitz packages on third down. They refuse to blitz until they're behind, and then they blitz when they're desperate. And they won't throw the ball deep. They won't push the ball down the field until they have to. And at that point, it's predictable. They might do it on the first drive, but then it goes away once they get a lead. Yeah, it's really frustrating. I don't even know what to say anymore.
So where do we go from here? We always talk about being action-based. If we are in the front office here, we're not firing Staley. Are you firing Staley Monday morning?
If during the season?
Yeah.
I probably not.
Yeah.
I think that's an off-season move personally. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody in-house who you can replace him with. I mean, what are you going to do? Promote Hill or Lombardi, God forbid? There's nobody who can replace him.
Shane Day
as head coach.
Just jump him. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. There's nobody internally. No. So we're not firing Staley if we're the staff. But is there any like personnel changes? I mean, I'd like to see Troy Reeder on the field a lot more than Kenneth Murray now, which I thought we'd see a lot more of. I thought we'd see a lot more of rotation, but we're not.
Is there anybody on the bench who you really need to see on the field at this point? I guess. I mean.
Well, I mean, addition by subtraction. Do you want to see JT Woods on the field more and Alohi Gilman instead of Adderley?
I don't necessarily. I mean, I know Gilman came up with the fumble today, but no, I don't want to see more of him on the field.
No, I don't either.
It's probably time to. And they started today. Woods was on the field for at least one play today that I saw. So
yeah,
I think it's time to start seeing if he's the playmaker that you think he is. I know he can't tackle, but maybe he can come up with a couple picks and turn a game that way. Give you some field position or something, or see if he can contribute on special teams and come away with force a fumble or something. But yeah, I would say it's probably time to start taking an extended look at Woods, just because I'm done with watching Adderley try to ankle tackle people. He's not good enough on the back end as a cover guy and a playmaker to put up with what he's been as a tackler this year.
Yeah.
He's just been all the way bad.
Yeah.
If you want,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I would be okay with bringing Reeder in. I think they're better in that heavy set with one linebacker, but if you're gonna have two linebackers on the field, I know he's a former first round pick. I don't really see the development in Murray that everybody else has been seeing. I think you put Reeder out there and see if he can make some plays for you. I think you got to get Gaziano on the field more to see if maybe he can help create some interior pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
he was pretty good in the run game today.
What's that?
I thought Gaziano had a pretty good day in the run game today.
Yeah, he was okay. I don't know if there's really an answer or a solve on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
They're having major communication issues. Zion isn't playing well. Filer isn't playing well.
It's affecting.
I don't think they have. What's that?
It's affecting Sawyer now. The Filer's.
Yeah. I just don't think they have. They don't have the bodies or the personnel on the offensive line, the depth to make any real changes. I think they're kind of stuck where they are. Yeah, I don't know if there's much else you can do with the personnel. You have any other ideas?
No, I mean, we talked about signing like a defensive tackle. A lot of those got picked up this week.
All by the Eagles.
Yep. The Eagles got them all. We talked about bringing an OBJ if at all possible, but they just don't. It's tough. I mean, what do they do now? They've got to not win out, but they've got to get close to it going forward if they want even a shot at the wild card.
Yeah, I think tonight pretty much ended their shot at the wild card. I think it's going to be tough. I just don't think they're very good right now.
No.
They seem to be allergic to scoring points in the second half. Lombardi's a major handicap. I mean, even if the offensive line isn't playing that well, Lombardi's a huge handicap because he's just too conservative, and it's not going to change. Yeah. I think it's going to be a major uphill battle at 5-5 right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Because I'm not sure you get a wild card spot at 10-7.
Probably not. You'd probably need to win 11 games.
Yeah. Man. Whew. And I'm sure people are going to want us to go through the schedule, but I don't have it in front of me. But I know there's some tough ones.
We did that last week anyway.
Yeah. So
although those opinions might change after tonight, but we did do that last week.
I know. They had a chance today. They just got beat, man.
So, okay, we've been negative here for like 35 minutes. Do we have any positives that we want to share to end the show?
I think we're positive. I think Bryce Callahan looked really good. We talked about some of the guys that looked good. I thought Bryce Callahan was great as a blitzer today. Sebastian Joseph Day had a hell of a game, and I think really that signing is starting to really pay off with both of those guys, Callahan and Sebastian Joseph Day. Like I said, I thought Gaziano had some good plays today. Morgan Fox was in the backfield a lot today. Troy Reeder made some plays today at the linebacker spot. I think there were some good. And look at Joshua Palmer really stepping up when Mike Williams went down, and Keenan Allen fumbling and then coming back and having that huge catch down the sideline. Real big redemption arc for Keenan Allen today. It was great to see him back out there. The offense is definitely a hell of a lot more explosive with him on the field. You can just tell there's a difference.
For sure. Herbert looks more comfortable and confident in the weapons when he's out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Palmer's had 2 good weeks in a row. I think he's had 3 good games in the last 4 or 5 weeks. He's been getting more consistent. It seems like they're figuring out how to use him, and they're realizing that he isn't Mike Williams or Keenan Allen. So they can't use him as if he is. So it's encouraging that they're figuring that out. It's a shame that it took a year and a half to figure it out, but
Yeah.
they're figuring it out. Nice to have Keenan back. Spiller looked really good in the first half. We didn't really see much of him in the second half. I think he touched the ball once or twice in the second half, but he looked really good, both in terms of, making guys miss in the hole and finishing runs by running behind his pads and being physical, which is really encouraging. He looked good catching the ball out of the backfield. Keenan, even though he was on a pitch count, he looked fresh, which you would hope he would after missing 7 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Hands look good. He's running well. He's cutting well. He got down the field, which you're not used to seeing from him. All good things. What else? You mentioned the defense. Yeah. Fox, SJD, both played really well. Callahan was good. I was expecting more from Zont. I didn't think he played very well tonight. Durham was kind of a disappointment outside of his sack. Anybody else? I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then the other positive, I mentioned this earlier, but I kind of glossed over it. Even though the drive didn't end with 7 points, I thought the Chargers did a really good job of managing the clock and controlling the clock the last 8 minutes of the first half to make sure the Chiefs only got one possession. They had 2 scoring drives in the final 8 minutes of the first half, I believe, and really controlled the clock and did a good job of shortening the game and limiting the Chiefs' possessions. Would have been nice to come away with 7 at the end of the first half. I didn't have as big of a problem with the pitch to Eckler. I think the problem was the personnel and McKitty getting in the way and taking out
his own guy.
Taking out his own guy. Yeah. McKitty being incompetent is what blew up that play. I don't think the play call was bad. I think if everybody executes, we're talking about what a great play it is because it scored a touchdown. So didn't have a huge problem with the play call. Would have liked to see him run downhill, but I can live with a pitch if people execute. They just didn't execute.
I'm fine with a double flea flicker if it works, but you don't want to see it run very often.
Not really the same thing. But
this made me laugh here from Seth. We've come a long way since we crowned Staley the greatest Charger coach of all time when he went 4-0 last year. Remember, we were building statues of him not too long ago, Jamie.
I know. Yeah. How much things change in a year and a half, huh?
Yep. Have the turns have tabled. But Palmer, I thought was a lot more aggressive today. It felt like a different Palmer. It seemed like, they're trying to use him, like you mentioned, like kind of like that Mike Williams role that we've mentioned before, but also it seems like he was a lot more passive. Like he would get ran out of bounds a lot. His routes were getting cut off by the sideline. But today it seemed like he was the aggressor. He was fighting for some tough catches. He added some yards after the catch today. He was a lot more aggressive today than we've seen in games past, I think. And I think that was kind of a difference today with Joshua Palmer. And great touchdown at the end by him as well. So I thought he was really good. And I know Zion did not have a very good game, but I think that that kick out block where he blocked 2 guys to free Spiller was a great rep by him, where Spiller ended up getting like 10 yards on that play. Oh, and one play that they ran at the goal line today at the end of the game was a swing pass to Eckler where they had everybody out wide and it was just a hat on a hat and it was 3 wide receivers blocking so that Eckler he got down to like the 3 or 4. That play should return sometime before the end of the season. That was a perfectly executed play. And that is probably a touchdown next time. Everybody blocked across the board. You had Eckler in space. A linebacker had to get him at the second level, but that was a beautiful play call. And I love that play.
Yeah, that was a great play. I would like to see them stop throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage to Palmer. I don't think that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, don't do that part.
Yeah, that play to Eckler was a nice play. And they got a really nice block, I believe, from Keenan on that play to help spring it. So they had a couple of nice swing passes to Eckler in similar formations where they had everybody out wide and threw behind them and just let him kind of pick his spot. We have a question that keeps being asked repeatedly. So let's
Oh boy. Is this a good one or a bad one? Oh, okay.
So Athir says, I got questions. If the Chargers finish 9-8, Whose job is safe? Give me an answer, please.
um, if they're 9-8, they're above 500, and I think that's enough to keep Staley safe. To be honest with you, I would fire him, but I think the Spanos would keep him.
I've
And
been
they would
saying it
blame
for
injuries.
weeks. Yep. I've been saying it for weeks. I will say it again. Unless the Chargers finish like 5-11 or 5-12, excuse me, or 6-11,
Like lose out the rest of the season. Damn.
lose out the rest of the season and completely crumble and humiliate themselves, they're not firing Brandon Staley.
So even if the Chargers finish at 7-10, they win 2 more games the rest of the way. They go 2-5 the rest of the season. You think Staley's job still safe?
I do. I think they'll look at the close games they played against the Chiefs, against the 49ers, against some other teams, and they'll say, we're hanging with good football teams. We just didn't have the healthy bodies to finish. And they'll use that as an excuse.
Yeah. I think there's going to be an injury excuse at the end of the game for sure. They'll put up that chart where they're the most injured team, but not, point to the talent that they did have and couldn't get it done. And then Cameron said that Ficken at special teams is the only one that should be safe. And shout out to Ficken, who has really turned this special teams around, man. They have looked excellent this year.
He has been amazing, and they've been really good with the details. That play, I forget who it was against. The play where Jasir Taylor came down the field and threw a blocker into a punt returner to force a turnover.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Was that against the Raiders? I forget who that was. It was early in the season. But
it won them the game. They recovered it and was able to kick a field goal. And I'm trying to remember who that was. Was it the Broncos?
Oh, it was the Texans. Was it the Texans?
Anyway, I know what you're talking about, but yes. And then even today, where they kicked it near the sideline and they and the Chief caught it and went out of bounds and kind of pinned him back there.
Yeah, their attention to detail and ability to execute those details on special teams this year has been
I was right.
Light years ahead. What's that?
It was the Broncos.
Was it the Broncos?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But anyway, their ability to identify and execute on the details in special teams this year has been light years ahead of where it's been really at any time since Tom Telesco has been the general manager and John Spanos has been running head of football operations. They're operating at a much higher level than they ever have. Mm-hmm. And I think Ficken deserves a ton of credit because they had a lot more turnover on special teams this year. And to be able to execute the way they've been able to has been, I think, a really key factor in their ability to stay in games because they would not have been able to make these plays the last few years and they'd be getting blown out in these games that they're hanging around in.
Remember when at the end of last season, they fired special teams coach and now his name escapes me, of course, but
Swinton.
Darius Swinton. Yep. They fired Darius Swinton and special teams was pretty good with Andre Roberts last year and they kept Lombardi and they kept everybody across the board. But they got rid of special teams, and you're going, what? Why is he the fall guy? Special teams was the only good part of that season, it felt like. And then here comes Ficken, and somehow they got even better. J.K. Scott has been amazing with his hang time on punts. And the fact that they've been able to go through 3 different kickers, and Hopkins was good when he was healthy. Birdlet was good when he was here. And now Dicker, the kicker, has been great since he's been here. Return game's been great in terms of coverage unit and stuff. Not that Hopkins has really been a great kick returner or punt returner. He's had a few good returns, but special teams have been really good this year, and Ficken deserves a ton of credit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. And, we were having a conversation in our Discord earlier this week where people were talking about Mike and Keenan coming back and, now the offense is going to pick up. And I was like, this is going to sound weird because we all want the team to win, but I think we should all kind of should kind of be secretly rooting for the team, for the offense, not to get better with Keenan and Mike back, to not be able to put up points in the second half, because that's the only way Lombardi is going to get fired.
Oh,
because if they're hurt and he's not putting up points, it's easy to point out and say, well, they didn't have their wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Of course he's not putting up points. They, they're limited. What are they supposed to do? Like everybody's saying on Twitter right now. Well, they have to run it. They have to throw swing passes and 3-yard passes because they don't have the bodies they thought they were going to have. How are they supposed to execute and get the ball down the field, which is horseshit, by the way, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So to have them have Keenan back, even in a limited fashion, and struggle in the second half, even if they were to finish 9-8 this year, if they continue to struggle in second halves and they continue to get boat raced in the second half of games, I think we're getting closer and closer to getting Lombardi fired. But if they come back and things turn around, they're just going to point to those guys being hurt and say, well, see, it wasn't Lombardi. We just didn't have our bodies. But as soon as they came back, things got better. So you can't blame Joe. It was the injuries.
Right.
Whatever happens this year, we need Lombardi gone next year.
That's the end goal here. Yeah. Lombardi needs to get fired at the end of the day. I think that's it. Any other, if you guys got any questions, let us know. Nick just had a baby. Congratulations. And he wants to know what team his son should be a fan of.
The Chiefs?
Yeah. It seemed like the easiest answer. Will they be good by the time he's old enough to really care? Is the hard part, you know?
Maybe
he was just born. So we're talking like, 7, 8. When you start getting in 7 years, is Andy Reid still there? Probably not.
But Mahomes probably still will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kelce will probably be gone by then.
Maybe. Who knows?
So maybe not the Chiefs. Maybe the Eagles.
Who's got a good young core?
Maybe the Dolphins, if you like speed receivers and throwing the ball down the field.
Just don't let him be a Charger fan, I think is the answer. Anybody but the Chargers. Because who would subject themselves to this? We were, and that's the problem is Nick's son's going to be born into this like the rest of us, and we're all just going to have to suffer together. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of the father-son bond is you guys commiserating together. It was kind of
don't do that to him. Don't do that to him.
Oh, okay. Let's see. There was making him a Charger fan would be child abuse. Well, that's a little strong, but I get what you're saying. That's close. That's close.
It's definitely emotional abuse.
Yeah.
And depending on how you're speaking with him and to him during games, it could be verbal abuse too. So
just be careful is what we're saying. All right. There's a couple questions, but how much does this O-line miss Frank Clark? Seems like he's been gone. The O-line has trended downward.
You mean Frank Smith?
Or Frank Smith. What did I say? Frank Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. He's in my nightmares, I guess. He didn't have a good game. But yeah, Frank Smith was great.
Yeah. I mean, he was huge, I think, in developing Pipkins.
Mm-hmm.
And in the line gelling and executing their jobs, their assignments in general. And I think they really missed him.
Yeah.
I think that was a tough loss.
Offensive line looked really good for a good bit. They did not look good today. Omar wants to know, what are our thoughts on Herbert throwing 2 interceptions at the end of both games? See, that's a tough one. Because somebody asked earlier that if roles were reversed, Chargers scored that touchdown, Mahomes has 2 timeouts, 30 seconds left. You assume he's going down and maybe scoring.
With 30 seconds?
I mean, they did it with 17 against the Bills, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, they needed a minute 15 to score today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's asking a lot, I think. I think that's asking a lot. I mean, Herbert throwing that interception, he made a desperation decision trying to get the ball to his best playmaker. Options are limited. He's trying to avoid getting hit. He probably should have thrown the ball away.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's ideally what you want him to do. But he's trying to make something happen. The one last week wasn't really on him. His arm got hit. They didn't protect him. His arm got hit and the ball was offline. Not really on Herbert. He actually had an open, I think it was Palmer was wide open down the sideline. He just couldn't get it to him because he took the hit. So it just seems like the Chargers are doomed to these finishes no matter what.
No matter who's at quarterback?
No matter who's a quarterback. It's the same kind of finishes we had with Herbert or with Rivers.
Mm.
Yeah. forcing balls into spots, making mistakes, tip balls getting picked off, just because they have to do everything for the team to win.
Yeah. Definitely not blaming Herbert, but yeah, it's been a tough end again, and it feels just like Rivers. All right. Well, I think we're good. We did 50 minutes or so on this now. And this is going to be a tough one. Hopefully they can get back on it, and maybe we'll have a better tone next week. But appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.